The rain hammered on the roof of Iris Marlowe's old sedan as she squinted, through the windshield, wipers slashing furiously at the downpour. It was a pitch-black evening on the winding back road outside the small town of Crescent Harbor, and the usual pitter-patter of Pacific Northwest rain had escalated into a full-blown deluge. Each raindrop drummed on the car's hood with urgency and flashes of distant, lightning-illuminated towering cedar and fir trees flanking the road. Iris leaned forward, peering into the shimmering curtain of rain, grateful for her new wiper blades and muttering a prayer that the fading headlights would guide her safely home. Despite the storm's fury, Iris felt a strange sense of calm inside the car. The heater hummed softly, blowing warm air to chase away the chill that clung to her damp jeans. A faint scent of pine from an air freshener mixed with the petrichor of rain-soaked earth seeping in each time she passed a gravel driveway. On the passenger seat beside her lay a paper bag with leftover muffins from the diner, her dinner after a long shift waiting tables. As thunder rumbled overhead, she reached to turn down the low music on her radio, preferring to concentrate on the road's twists and turns. Rounding a bend by an old mossy split-rail fence, Iris's headlights illuminated a lone figure trudging along the roadside. Her heart skipped. What was someone doing out here on foot in this weather? The figure was a man, hunched against the rain, one arm hugging his torso and the other dragging a large backpack. He had no umbrella, and his dark jacket was soaked, water cascading off him in rivulets. In the brief seconds as she approached, Iris noticed his stride falter, a slight limp in his step. He looked exhausted and desperate, as if he'd been walking for miles. Instinctively, Iris's foot eased off the accelerator. Her better judgment wavered. Picking up a stranger at night wasn't something she'd normally do. She recalled her friend Mira's voice teasing, "You're too trusting for your own good, Iris. One day, your kindness might get you in trouble." Normally, Iris would pass by, perhaps with a pang of guilt, but ultimately deciding it was safer not to stop. Tonight, however, something tugged at her conscience. The road was isolated, no other headlights in sight, and the nearest town, Crescent Harbor, was still 7 miles ahead. He'll catch his death out here, she thought, imagining the man shivering in wet clothes. As her car drew near, the man turned hopefully toward the sound of the engine. In the split second of her low beams, Iris glimpsed a face that was young, around her age, late 20s perhaps. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and though shadows obscured his features, she could sense no malice there, just fatigue and relief at seeing a car. He half raised his free hand, not quite a hitchhiker's thumb, more a pleading wave for help. Iris bit her lip, heart thudding. This could be risky, her rational mind warned, yet her compassionate nature won out. She imagined if it were her brother, or a friend stuck out in a storm, she'd pray someone would help. Just be cautious, she reminded herself. Slowing to a stop a few yards ahead of the stranger, Iris cracked the passenger window just an inch. Rain sprayed through the gap as she called out, "Are you all right? Do you need a ride into town?" The man hurried to her window, the backpack slung over his shoulder. His eyes, a piercing shade of grey-blue, blinked away rain. Up close, Iris noticed he had a few days' scruff of beard and a shallow cut on his left cheek, as if he'd been in a scrape recently. Despite his drenched state, he managed a polite smile. "If it's not too much trouble," he replied, raising his voice over the rain's roar. His tone was earnest, edged with exhaustion. I wouldn't normally ask, but I've been walking for hours. My truck broke down." He gestured vaguely behind him down the road. Iris unlocked the passenger door and pushed it open. "Hop in," she offered warmly. "I'll take you as far as Crescent Harbor. Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much." The man sighed in relief. He quickly opened the door wider and slid in, careful to keep his muddy boots on the mat. A gust of cold air and rainwater swirled in with him, making Iris shiver. Up close under the dim cabin light, he looked even more miserable, rain dripping from his lashes, hands trembling slightly from the cold. Iris immediately cranked the heater higher. "Here," she said, grabbing an old plaid blanket from the back seat that she kept for emergencies. "You're soaked." Try to dry off a bit." He hesitated, then accepted gratefully. "You're a lifesaver," he murmured. As he patted his face and hair with the blanket, Iris noticed his hands were strong and calloused, as if he was used to physical work. She pulled back onto the road, driving cautiously now that she had precious cargo. "So, your truck broke down. Rough night for it," she said, attempting conversation to put them both at ease. He let out a breathy half-laugh. "You can say that again." It sputtered out about 10 miles back. "I've been walking since. I was starting to think I'd have to build an ark to get out of this rain," he joked lightly. Despite herself, Iris smiled. "Well, you're safe now. We're headed to Crescent Harbor. There's a service station there, but it'll be closed at this hour. Do you have somewhere to stay in town?" The man shifted, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. "I was actually on my way to find a motel or inn. I've been traveling, passing through. Crescent Harbor wasn't exactly on my planned route, but—" He lifted his hands in a what-can-you-do gesture and gave a wry smile. "Sometimes life has its own plans." Iris nodded in understanding. "Tell me about it. This storm wasn't in my evening plans either." She glanced at him and realized she didn't even know his name. "I'm Iris, by the way. Iris Marlowe." He met her eyes briefly and inclined his head. "I'm Rowan. Rowan Locklear. It's a pleasure to meet you, Iris. Though I wish the circumstances were drier." There was a gentle warmth in how he said her name, and Iris felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Me too," she replied with a light laugh. "We'll both have a story to tell after tonight." As they talked, Iris noticed Rowan stealing glances at her, probably to gauge her trustworthiness as well, she thought. She was glad she had worn her hair up in a no-nonsense ponytail and had on her work clothes. Jeans, sneakers, and the navy blue polo with silver spoon diner embroidered on it. She likely looked harmless, just as he did to her. A crack of thunder made Iris jump slightly, and she realized her nerves were still high. To steady herself, she focused on details, the road shining like a black mirror, the rhythm of the wipers, Rowan. His presence beside her bringing an oddly comforting sense of companionship on an otherwise lonely drive. Rowan cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "You're very kind to stop. Not everyone would, especially picking up a stranger in the dark." Iris shrugged modestly. "I figured you needed help. I couldn't just leave you out there. But I admit, I was a little hesitant," she added honestly. "You never really know with people these days." He nodded vigorously. "Of course. I understand. I'm just grateful. I promise I'm not a bad guy." There was a sincerity in his voice that made Iris believe him without question. A few miles rolled by. To their left, glimpses of the harbor appeared between trees, the black expanse of water occasionally catching a glint of reflected lightning. The town of Crescent Harbor was just beyond, a cozy cluster of lights under the stormy sky. Rowan followed her gaze out the window. "Is that the town up ahead?" "Yes, that's home sweet home," Iris said fondly. As much as she sometimes dreamed of bigger places, on stormy nights like this Crescent Harbor with its welcoming streetlights and familiar haunts felt like a safe haven. It's not big, but it has its charms. I've heard small towns in the Pacific Northwest have a special kind of charm, Rowan said, almost to himself, as if recalling something. "I've been to so many cities on this trip. Maybe a quieter place is what I need right now." His tone held a hint of weariness. Iris sensed under that polite exterior he was carrying some burden, but it wasn't her place to pry. Still, curiosity nibbled at her. "What brings you out here? If you don't mind me asking, you said you were traveling, just sightseeing, or—" He hesitated, then offered, "A bit of a soul-searching journey, I guess you could call it. I needed to get away from the routine, clear my head." A small, self-deprecating chuckle. "That probably sounds cliché." "Not at all," Iris said softly. She understood perhaps more than he realized. She too had yearned for change at times, though responsibilities kept her rooted here for now. Sometimes a long drive or a change of scenery helps when life gets complicated. Rowan glanced at her appreciatively. "Exactly. And you? Were you coming from work out on this road so late? She nodded. Double shift at the diner. I'm headed home now. I live just past town actually, off Meadow Lane. She didn't know why she offered that extra detail, but something about him made her feel oddly safe, as if chatting with an old friend. He smiled. Maybe I can convince that diner to let me in for a late coffee after I dry off. If they're closed, I might just have to beg you for one more favor, a recommendation for somewhere to stay. Iris grinned. Silver Spoon closes at 8, I'm afraid. But there's a bed and breakfast called Harbour Lights Inn just a few blocks from the diner. They might have a late check-in. The owner lives on site. It's not fancy, but it's cozy. That sounds perfect, Rowan said, relief in his voice. I really can't thank you enough, Iris. I owe you one. She waved off his thanks. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad I could help someone in need. Maybe someday if I'm caught in a storm, someone will do the same for me. He studied her for a moment, as if committing her face to memory. I hope they will. And I promise I'll pay this kindness forward somehow. Moments later, they reached the outskirts of Crescent Harbour. The town's quiet streets were shiny and dark, the storefronts closed for the night. Street lamps cast golden halos in the rain. Iris drove down Main Street, passing the darkened windows of familiar spots, the bookstore, the post office, the Silver Spoon diner where she worked, now dark, except for the neon closed sign glinting. Rowan peered out at the quaint street. It's charming, he said softly, as if he could already feel the town's slower rhythm. She turned onto Lighthouse Road, and the Harbour Lights Inn came into view, a large Victorian house turned in, with a wraparound porch. Fortunately, a porch light was on. Iris pulled under the portico to shield them from the rain. This is it, she announced. The clock on her dash read 10:47 p.m. She hadn't planned to be out so late, but she felt strangely energized by the company. Rowan looked at the inn and then back at Iris, reluctance flickering in his eyes. Thank you, truly, he said quietly, for everything. You didn't have to stop, but you did. That means a lot to me. Up close now, Iris noticed his eyes were a stormy blue-grey, much like the clouds that night, but with sparks of warmth. She felt a sudden shyness under his steady gaze. You're welcome. I'm glad I passed by when I did. She reached into the paper bag on the seat and pulled out one of the muffins she had taken home from work. It was wrapped in a napkin. Take this. It's not much, but you've had a rough night. Blueberry muffin, baked fresh this afternoon. Rowan accepted the muffin, a look of mild surprise and gratitude crossing his face. You think of everything, don't you? Iris shrugged, blushing faintly. Just didn't want you going to bed hungry. He smiled, and for the first time she saw it reach his eyes, crinkling the corners. It was a handsome smile, genuine and open. Iris, I won't forget your kindness. How can I get in touch to return this favor? Do you have a number I could call, maybe take you to lunch or something once I'm settled? The question caught her off guard. Part of her was pleased. She would like to see him again, a realization that startled her given they'd just met. But another part of her was cautious. She bit her lip. You really don't owe me, Rowan. I know I don't owe you, he said quickly. I just would like to thank you properly, and maybe hear more about this little town from a local, if you'd be up for that. His voice was hopeful, and Iris found herself nodding almost before she made the decision. All right. Sure. I mean, I'd like that. She fumbled in her purse and found a pen but no paper. Rowan noticed and immediately pulled something from his own pocket, a small, damp notebook and a business card tucked inside as a makeshift bookmark. He handed her the business card. It was a simple black card with just a name and a phone number embossed in silver. The name printed was Rowan Locklear, and below it, in smaller print, Blue Horizon Ventures. She wasn't sure what that was. Sounded like a company, maybe a startup or investment firm. Before she could read more, Rowan quipped, "Probably easier if you just save me in your phone." Here. She took out her phone and added his number from the card, noticing her hand was trembling slightly with excitement or nerves. She then recited her own number to him, which he tapped into his phone's contacts. I'll call you in a day or two, if that's okay, Rowan said, tucking his now muffin-bearing notebook away. Once I figure out my plan from here. Sure, Iris replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I'm off work on Wednesday, if you want that tour of town or that lunch. Wednesday, he repeated with a nod. Sounds like a plan. For a moment, an awkward silence settled as the rain drummed on the roof. Neither of them seemed eager to part. Iris finally cleared her throat. You should get inside before you catch a cold. Rowan chuckled softly. Right. Good night, Iris. And thanks again for everything. Good night, Rowan. He opened the door and braved the rain once more, slinging his backpack on and hurrying under the inn's porch awning. Iris watched until he rang the bell and the door opened. Mrs. Conway. The innkeeper peered out and welcomed the drenched stranger inside. Satisfied he was safe, Iris released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. As she pulled away into the rain, heading home, Iris felt a curious fullness in her chest, a warm glow born of doing something good and perhaps the faint spark of a new connection. The storm no longer seemed as menacing. In fact, as she drove off, she caught herself smiling into the darkness, her thoughts on the polite, blue-eyed stranger she had just rescued from the rain. She couldn't have known then how much that single act of kindness on one stormy night would alter the course of her life forever. Welcome back, dear friends. Tonight, we're exploring kindness, trust, and how one rainy moment can change a life. Tell me in the comments. In Iris's shoes, would you have pulled over in that storm to help a stranger? I read every reply. Before we dive in, please tap subscribe and turn on the bell. It tells me to keep bringing you stories like this, and it means the world to me. Later that night, safe in her little bedroom cottage on the outskirts of town, Iris toweled off her hair and changed into cozy pajamas. The rain continued its relentless drum outside, but inside she felt warm and content. Her fluffy grey cat, Nimbus, wound around her legs, purring loudly, whether welcoming her home or demanding a late night snack, likely both. Iris chuckled and obliged, scooping kibble into Nimbus's bowl. As she waited for the kettle to boil for a cup of chamomile tea, Iris's thoughts drifted back to Rowan. The whole drive home, she had replayed their conversation in her mind. The timbre of his voice over the storm, the grateful smile he'd given her, the way her name sounded in his accent. She couldn't quite place it. Mostly American with a hint of something else, perhaps a childhood abroad. It had been such a brief encounter, yet she felt as if a door had cracked open in her life that she hadn't even known was shut. Curling up on her sofa with her steaming mug, Iris allowed herself to wonder, would he really call in a day or two? Or was that just polite talk? She glanced at her phone on the coffee table. No new messages, of course. It was far too soon. Wednesday, he'd said. It was Monday night now. Don't get your hopes up, she chided herself gently. He was just being nice. For all she knew, Rowan might be gone by morning, continuing on his journey, and their paths would never cross again. Nimbus leapt up, settling into Iris's lap, and she stroked the cat absent-mindedly. On the side table lay Rowan's business card, where she'd tossed it along with her keys. Blue Horizon Ventures. It sounded corporate and important. Iris chewed her lip, curiosity getting the better of her. She reached over and picked up the card, running her thumb over the embossed silver letters. Who are you, Rowan Locklear? She mused silently. Unable to resist, Iris grabbed her laptop from under the coffee table and opened a search engine. She typed in Blue Horizon Ventures Rowan Locklear and hit enter. Several results popped up. The first was a LinkedIn profile summary for a Rowan Locklear, founder at Blue Horizon Ventures based in Seattle. The second looked like a news article from a tech journal. Heart thudding with intrigue, Iris clicked the article. It was a few months old, an interview titled Investor Rowan Locklear on Supporting Sustainable Startups. A photograph accompanied it, a well-dressed man in a tailored suit standing in front of a conference banner. The face was undeniably Rowan's, though in the photo his dark hair was neatly styled and he looked every bit a confident young professional, worlds away from the drenched traveler she'd picked up. Iris's eyes widened. The article outlined how Blue Horizon Ventures was a boutique investment firm that Rowan had co-founded, focusing on environmentally sustainable tech companies. It mentioned he was originally from the East Coast, had made a name by selling a successful startup, in his early 20s and now in his 30s, was both a venture capitalist and a philanthropist. Iris sat back, mind whirling. A venture capitalist? She let out a low whistle that made Nimbus flick an ear. Rowan hadn't bragged about any of this. He'd simply said he was traveling to clear his head. Perhaps something had happened, burnout, a business deal gone wrong, or a personal matter that sent him on the road. She felt a pang of sympathy. Money and success didn't shield one from life's troubles. In fact, they often brought more. Closing the laptop, Iris felt a mix of awe and apprehension. If he did call, would she feel comfortable around him knowing he was that Rowan Locklear? Then again, nothing had really changed. He was still the polite, charming man who ate her blueberry muffin and promised to call. He had chosen not to flaunt his status, which spoke to his character. Perhaps he valued being treated normally. Iris resolved not to bring up what she'd discovered unless he did. Finishing her tea, she headed to bed with Nimbus padding behind. As she drifted off to sleep, Iris found herself smiling. Whether or not Rowan reappeared, she felt good about what she did. Helping someone in need, that was the right thing to do. And if fate had a strange way of bringing people together, who was she to question it? Tuesday morning dawned clear, the storm having passed. Sunlight broke through grey clouds, casting a silver sheen on puddles along Main Street. At the Silver Spoon Diner, Iris moved about the counter refilling coffee for the early patrons. Truckers, a retired couple, and Mira, who sat on a stool flipping through the local newspaper on her break. Mira, a petite redhead with a personality 10 times her size, eyed Iris with a sly grin. "All right, spill." "Something's up with you today," she prodded, stirring cream into her coffee. Iris paused, nearly sloshing coffee over the mug she was filling. "What do you mean?" "I'm fine," she said. But she could feel the betraying warmth in her cheeks. "You've been humming love songs to yourself since you walked in," Mira accused playfully. "And you have this goofy smile like Nimbus when he's in the catnip." Iris laughed and shook her head. "I have not." But her protest was weak. She had been in an unusually bright mood. Mira leaned forward, resting her chin in her hand. "Come on. We tell each other everything. Did something happen after you left last night? You look happy. Did you meet someone?" Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Realizing she wouldn't get away without satisfying her friend, Iris did a quick scan to ensure the other customers were content, and then poured herself a bit of coffee to sip. "If I tell you, you have to promise not to make a big deal out of it," she warned, sliding into the stool next to Mira for a stolen moment of break. "I knew it." Mira crowed softly and mimed zipping her lips. "I promise. Now dish." Quietly, Iris recounted the tale of the previous night, driving home in the storm, finding Rowan on the roadside, giving him a lift, and their conversation. She left out the part about Googling him, not sure why, but it felt like prying into his life, a life he had chosen not to flaunt to her. Instead, she focused on how kind and normal he had been, despite clearly being well-educated and possibly well-off. Mira listened with rapt attention, her coffee forgotten. When Iris described Rowan's looks, tall, maybe 6 feet 1 inch, with dark hair and these grey-blue eyes, Mira fanned herself dramatically. "A handsome stranger in the night. Iris, this is straight out of a movie." "Stop," Iris chided, though she was smiling. "It was probably nothing. I mean, yes, he said he'd call, but who knows if he will. He was just grateful, that's all." Mira arched an eyebrow. "He gave you his number and specifically said he wants to thank you properly." "Honey, that man is definitely calling. I bet he was smitten. Our Iris is quite the savior. After all," she nudged Iris's shoulder. "So, what will you do if he calls? Going to go out with him?" "I said I'd show him around town," Iris admitted. "On Wednesday, because I'm off then." It was kind of an open invite. Mira waggled her brows. "Ooh, A midweek date? Scandalous. She giggled, then turned serious-ish. Just be careful, okay? Stranger or not, dreamy eyes or not, you only just met him. Maybe meet in public places. Keep your phone on you, you know. Iris appreciated the concern behind the teasing. I will, I promise. Honestly, I'm not even sure it's a date. It might just be a friendly thank to you lunch. Uh-huh. Keep telling yourself that, Mira said, smirking. She then sighed theatrically. Meanwhile, the most exciting thing in my life is old Mrs. Perkins tipping me with homemade pickles again. They shared a laugh, and Iris returned to work as a new customer walked in. Yet throughout the day, amidst taking orders and carrying trays of pancakes, Iris's mind would wander to Rowan. More than once, she caught herself glancing at the diner's door whenever it opened, a tiny hope fluttering that he might walk through. By the end of her shift, she scolded herself for being so distracted. It's only been one day. Get a grip. If her luck was anything to go by, charming strangers did not transform into Prince Charming overnight. That evening, after running a few errands, Iris returned home. A thin drizzle had begun falling. Apparently the storm wasn't entirely done. She wrapped a light cardigan around her shoulders and made a simple dinner of tomato soup and grilled cheese. Nimbus padded over to curl up at her feet under the table, a ritual he'd done every night since he was a kitten. Normally this quiet hour with her pet, some comfort food, and a classic jazz playlist was enough to soothe any stresses of the day. But tonight, Iris felt restless. She found herself checking her phone repeatedly, ensuring the volume was up, that she hadn't missed any calls or texts. By 8 p.m., there was still nothing from Rowan. Iris tried to temper her disappointment. Maybe he's busy, she reasoned. Or maybe he decided to move on. After all, he had his own life, likely far removed from this sleepy town. To distract herself, Iris settled at her small writing desk by the window with a journal. The rain outside was gentle now, tapping on the glass. She often wrote in her journal to unwind, a habit she'd picked up during lonelier evenings. Flipping to a fresh page, she began to write about the encounter, describing the events and how she felt. Writing it out helped. Even if she never saw Rowan again, she wanted to remember that moment of courage and kindness that had made her feel genuinely good about herself. Halfway through penning a line about how unexpected events could spark new hope, her phone buzzed. Iris's heart jumped. She snatched it up, and sure enough, a new text notification glowed on the screen. Hi, Iris. It's Rowan. Are we still on for tomorrow? I was thinking I could take you to lunch if you're free. If you're not comfortable meeting, I understand, but I hope you will. Let me know what works for you. Ah. Iris broke into a grin so wide her cheeks hurt. She quickly typed back, fingers flying. Hi, Rowan. Yes, I'm free tomorrow. Lunch sounds great. How about 12:30? There's a cafe on Main Street called the Pinecone Cafe. They do great sandwiches and soups. His response came almost immediately. Perfect. 12:30 it is. I'm looking forward to it. And I owe you that tour of town after. That simple smiley face at the end of his text made Iris's stomach do a little flip. He's looking forward to it, she thought, hugging the phone to her chest for a moment in giddy relief. Nimbus looked up at her curiously as she all but danced across the living room. Don't judge me, she laughed, scooping the cat into her arms. I'm allowed to be excited. It's just lunch after all, just lunch. But as she said it, she knew it wasn't just lunch. It felt like the beginning of something. Iris stood by the window, Nimbus purring in her arms, and watched the drizzle blur the glow of the streetlights outside. In that reflective moment, she felt a surge of cautious optimism. A few days ago, her life had been routine, even a touch lonely. Work, home, the occasional, hangout with Mira, and dreams she hardly voiced about adventure or love. Now, with one good deed, a new possibility had entered her world, as if the universe had taken notice of her openness and responded in kind. Tomorrow, she would see Rowan again. She had no idea what would come of it, whether a simple friendship, a thank you and goodbye, or something more. But for the first time in a long time, Iris allowed herself to hope that perhaps something more could be possible. And as she went to bed that night, anticipation humming through her. She whispered a quiet thank you to whatever fate or fortune had put her on that road on that rainy night. On Wednesday, Iris awoke to a pale sun breaking through scattered clouds. It seemed the weather had finally decided to grant a reprieve from the endless rain. The morning air felt crisp and new, as if in sync with her anxious excitement. She spent an inordinate amount of time picking out an outfit, casual but nice. After trying on 2 dresses and rejecting them as too much for a simple lunch, she settled on a soft teal sweater that brought out her hazel eyes and a pair of dark jeans paired with her favorite brown ankle boots. She left her long chestnut hair down, the ends gently waving naturally, and applied just a touch of makeup. Staring at herself in the mirror, Iris felt butterflies in her stomach. It's not a date, she insisted to her reflection. Yet her glowing cheeks and bright eyes betrayed her hopeful anticipation. By 12:20, Iris arrived at the Pinecone Cafe on Main Street. The cafe was a charming little spot frequented by locals, with flower boxes in the windows and a hand-painted sign. Inside, it was warm and cozy, checkered tablecloths, shelves lined with books and knickknacks, and the rich smell of coffee and freshly baked bread in the air. A few patrons chatted softly at tables. Iris chose a corner table by the window so they could look out at the town square where a gazebo stood, now decorated with orange and gold garlands for the autumn festival next week. She fiddled with the sugar packet holder, trying to calm her nerves. Would Rowan show up on time? Would it be awkward, now that they weren't in the adrenaline rush of a storm? She needn't have worried. At 12:30 sharp, the door jingled, and in walked Rowan. Iris's breath caught. Rowan looked effortlessly handsome, a far cry from the drenched wayfarer she first met. He wore a charcoal grey sweater over a collared shirt and well-fitted jeans. His dark hair, now clean and dry, fell in soft waves around his face. And when he spotted her and smiled, that same genuine smile that reached his storm-blue eyes, Iris felt warmth bloom in her chest. He crossed the room in a few strides. "Hello, Iris," he greeted, a touch of relief in his voice, as if he'd been just as nervous she might not come. Up close, he carried a subtle scent of pine and citrus, like a forest after rain. "Hi, Rowan," she replied, standing up. For a moment they hovered, both unsure if a handshake or a hug was appropriate. Rowan solved it by lightly resting a hand on her upper arm in a friendly squeeze. It was a small touch, but the contact sent a pleasant tingle up her spine. "I hope I'm not late," he said. "Not at all. I just got here a few minutes ago," Iris assured him. They sat down and exchanged a shy glance before both beginning to speak at the same time. "It's nice to see you. Thanks for meeting me." They laughed, the tension easing. "You first," Iris said, smiling. Rowan's eyes crinkled. "I was just going to say thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure if you'd actually want to, or if Monday night you were just being polite." Iris shook her head. "I wanted to. I'm glad you reached out." A waitress came by to drop off menus and take drink orders. Rowan ordered an iced tea, Iris her favorite blackberry lemonade. As they perused the menus, Rowan commented, "This place is delightful. Feels very homey." "It is. The Pinecone's been around forever. My parents used to bring me here when I was little, after school plays or soccer games," Iris said, fondly recalling the memory. "The owner, Marjorie, bakes the best bread in town." Rowan looked around appreciatively. "I can see why you love it. Places like this, they have a soul, you know. You can't find that in big city chain restaurants." Their drinks arrived, and they placed orders: turkey club sandwich for him, tomato basil soup, and half a grilled veggie panini for her. Once the waitress left, Rowan leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table. "So, how's your week been?" Iris chuckled. "After that stormy adventure, quite ordinary. Work at the diner has been the usual, though I admit I've spent more time than I should daydreaming about." She caught herself and flushed. "About, some changes I'd like to make in life." She took a quick sip of lemonade to cover her slip. She had almost said daydreaming about Monday night, which felt a bit too revealing. If Rowan noticed, he didn't show it. "What kind of changes?" he asked, genuinely curious. Oh, you know, Iris said lightly, the typical things one ponders when they've lived in one place their whole life. Seeing new places. Maybe pursuing old dreams I put on hold. She trailed off, aware she was veering into personal territory, but Rowan's gentle, interested expression encouraged her. I've been working at the diner since I was 17. It's a good, honest job, and the people in town are like family, but I always thought I'd do something more creative. Like what? Rowan tilted his head. If you could do anything, no limits, what would you want to do? Iris felt a tiny thrill at the question. It had been a while since someone earnestly asked about her dreams. Promise not to laugh. I would never, he said solemnly, placing a hand over his heart. All right, she smiled. Well, I love to bake. My mom taught me. For a while I thought I'd open my own bakery or cafe, maybe even go to culinary school. I used to invent muffin recipes and make my friends try them. They all joked that I'd be the next famous baker on TV. She laughed softly at the recollection. I believe it. That blueberry muffin you gave me was divine, Rowan said. Seriously, one of the best I've had. You think so? Iris beamed, pleased. I actually added some lemon zest to the batter. Gives a little brightness. But anyway, she waved her hand as if to dismiss the silly dream. Life had other plans. My mom got sick around the time I graduated high school. Cancer. I stayed to help her through treatments and took the diner job to pay bills. College and bakeries had to wait. After she passed, it just felt like too late to pick up and leave. I guess I got used to the routine here. Rowan's face softened with empathy. I'm so sorry about your mom. That must have been really hard. It was, Iris nodded, the familiar ache in her chest surfacing briefly. But it was a few years ago. I'm okay now. It's just Nimbus and me, she added with a small smile. Nimbus? He inquired. My cat. He's my roommate and a very good listener. Rowan chuckled. I'd love to meet him sometime. I've always liked cats. Iris could imagine Nimbus curling up on Rowan's lap easily. The thought made her heart flutter for no rational reason. Their food arrived, momentarily pausing the conversation. Once the waitress left, Rowan spoke. You know, it's never too late to chase those dreams. Whether it's culinary school or a bakery, you clearly have talent and passion for it. She shrugged, stirring her soup. Maybe, but dreams take money and risk. I don't exactly have a nest egg to fall back on if a business fails, and I guess I'm a little afraid. It's a big leap to leave what you know. Rowan nodded thoughtfully. That's true, it is a risk, but sometimes the biggest risks bring the biggest rewards. There was a far-off look in his eyes, and Iris sensed he was speaking from experience. If you ever decide to go for it, I have a feeling you'd make it work. You're smart, kind, and clearly hard-working. It was Iris's turn to feel bashful under praise. You don't even really know me, she protested gently, though his words warmed her more than she'd admit. I know you didn't hesitate to help a stranger on a dark night. That says a lot about who you are, Rowan said, holding her gaze. And I know the way you talk about baking, your eyes light up. You remind me of some entrepreneurs I've met who turn their passions into their life's work. Iris raised an eyebrow playfully. Are you comparing me to your tech startup friends or something? He laughed. Maybe I am. And speaking of which, I realize I haven't talked much about myself. She leaned in, interested. Only what you mentioned. You're traveling to clear your head and Blue Horizon Ventures from your card. I did wonder what that was. Iris felt a tiny pang of guilt again for having read that article, but she listened, curious how he'd frame it. Rowan took a sip of iced tea. Blue Horizon is a company I co-founded. We invest in new businesses, particularly ones that have an eco-friendly angle. It's a big part of my life, but I needed a break from it recently. Things got a little intense with a project that fell through. He chose his words carefully, and Iris sensed that perhaps the story was more personal than just a failed project. I realized I hadn't taken a day off in years, so I decided to take a road trip with no fixed destination. That's how I ended up here, by pure chance and a broken truck. A venture capitalist on a spontaneous road trip, Iris mused. That sounds like a movie plot. He smiled. Maybe a very boring indie film. Mostly it's been driving and thinking, until Monday night, that is." He paused. "That night, meeting you, it kind of felt like a sign." Iris's heart skipped. "A sign?" He looked slightly shy for the first time. "I know it sounds strange. I just mean, I was feeling pretty disillusioned before, wondering what I was doing with my life, despite all the so-called success. Then this kind stranger comes along and reminds me there are good people, genuine people out there. You sort of restored my faith, I guess." He chuckled, embarrassed. "Sorry, that's probably too heavy for lunchtime conversation." Iris felt a surge of emotion at his confession. "It's not too heavy," she said softly. "I'm glad if I could help in any way. You know, my mom used to say, when you feel lost, be kind to others, the path will find you. I never really understood it until maybe now." "That's a wonderful saying," Rowan replied, his eyes fixed on her like she was the only thing that mattered. "Your mom was a wise woman." "She was," Iris agreed, smiling wistfully. They lingered over lunch far longer than expected, conversation flowing easily from serious life topics to lighter fare. Rowan told her a funny story of a disastrous camping attempt on his trip where a raccoon absconded with his loaf of bread, leaving him hungry in the woods. Iris laughed so hard she nearly snorted lemonade out her nose, which made Rowan laugh in return. In turn, she shared amusing anecdotes of growing up in a small town, like the time the mayor's goat from his hobby farm escaped and ended up inside the hardware store, chewing on floral wallpaper rolls. After their plates were cleared, neither seemed eager to part. Iris took him up on his earlier interest in a town tour. They left the cafe and ambled down Main Street side by side, the sun occasionally peeking out from behind clouds. Iris pointed out the landmarks, the old courthouse, now a community center, the tiny public library where she'd spent many afternoons, the high school she'd attended. Rowan listened with interest, asking questions and sharing the occasional tidbit of how things compared to his upbringing in Connecticut. At one point, as they crossed a street, a passing car sped through a puddle, splashing water toward them. Rowan's hand instinctively went to Iris's back, ushering her away from the curb just in time. They ended up pressed close under an awning, laughing at the near miss. Iris realized his hand was still lightly on her back. He seemed to notice at the same moment, and their eyes met. A charge passed between them, the laughter fading into a different kind of quiet. Rowan's gaze flicked to her lips briefly, and Iris's breath hitched. For a heartbeat, it seemed he might kiss her. But a shout from across the street broke the spell, old Mr. O'Leary from the barber shop waving hello to Iris. They stepped apart, both blushing like teenagers. Rowan cleared his throat, smiling politely at the distant barber in acknowledgement. Iris waved back to Mr. O'Leary, then gestured to the next spot on their informal tour. "That's Green's Books over there, the bookstore. Would you like to go in? They have a great used book section upstairs and a resident cat that naps on the armchairs." "A bookstore with a cat? Lead the way." Rowan grinned, recovered from the moment. Inside Green's Books, the smell of old paper and coffee. The owner always had a fresh pot brewing for patrons envelop them. They did indeed find the fat tabby cat snoozing on a red velvet armchair near the fiction shelves. Rowan gently pet the cat's head, earning a lazy purr, while Iris browsed the shelves. They pointed out silly book titles to each other, and each ended up selecting a book. Rowan picked a historical mystery novel set on a ship. He admitted a weakness for nautical tales, and Iris chose a battered copy of a famous French cookbook published in the 1960s. "You weren't kidding about loving to bake," Rowan teased as she showed him her find. "This is a classic. It's got all these handwritten notes in the margins from whoever owned it. I love books with history," she said, thumbing through pages yellowed with time. When they went to pay, Rowan swiftly insisted on buying both books as a souvenir of their day. Iris protested, but he held up his hands. "Please, it's the least I can do after you treated me to that muffin and saved me from hypothermia the other night." Laughing, Iris relented. "All right, thank you, but only if you let me bake you something from this cookbook once I've experimented." "You have yourself a deal," he replied warmly. "If you're quietly rooting for Iris and Rowan, Tap like and drop a heart if you feel that spark building. And tell me, what's your favorite tiny moment that shows someone truly cares? They stepped out of the bookstore to find the afternoon waning. The clouds had gathered again, a light sprinkle beginning to dot the sidewalks. Looks like the rain couldn't stay away for long, Iris said, gazing up at the sky. Rowan tilted his head in a playful shrug. Well, it is the Pacific Northwest. At least it gave us a few hours. Iris realized they'd spent nearly 4 hours together. Time had flown. She didn't want the day to end, but wasn't sure if he had other plans or how to proceed. If you're not sick of me yet, we could continue the tour by car, she offered, half joking. Maybe drive out to the old lighthouse by the point. It's a pretty view. His face lit up. I'd love to, but, confession, I don't have a car at the moment. My truck's still at the mechanic's and might be a goner. I was thinking of renting one, but haven't sorted it yet. Oh, well, we can take mine, Iris said without hesitation. It's just in the public lot over there. Rowan smiled. The return of your trusty steed. Hopefully no dramatic rescues needed this time, just sightseeing. They retrieved her sedan and drove out of town along a coastal road. The lighthouse she mentioned stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, about 15 minutes out. As they drove, the rain stopped once more, and rays of late-day sun streamed through. Breaks in the clouds, painting the sky in swaths of gold and steel grey. At the lighthouse parking area, they got out and walked a short trail to a viewpoint. The old lighthouse tower stood a few hundred yards away, closed to. Public entry, but picturesque against the backdrop of churning waves. The wind had picked up, tossing Iris's hair. She wrapped her sweater tighter, and without a word, Rowan slipped off his light jacket and draped it around her shoulders. It was warm from his body heat, and Iris flushed at the intimate gesture, murmuring thanks. They stood side by side at the wooden railing, looking out at the vast Pacific Ocean. Gulls wheeled and cried above, and the scent of salt and seagrass filled the air. Rowan leaned on his elbows, closer to her now than before. It's beautiful. Thank you for bringing me here, he said quietly. It's one of my favorite spots, Iris replied. Whenever I need to think, I come here. It puts things in perspective, how small we are, yet connected to something so big. Rowan glanced at her. What are you thinking about now? She took a moment to gather the courage for honesty. I'm thinking, how unexpected this week has been, in a good way. On Sunday I was just living my same old life. And now, she turned to face him, her eyes searching his. Now I've met someone who's made me feel excited about things again, who makes me laugh and feel seen. Rowan's expression was tender, a touch of wonder in it. Iris, you've done the same for me, more than you know. His hand was on the railing near hers. Slowly, he moved it over, covering her hand with his. The wind whipped around them, and the ocean roared its constant song, but all Iris felt was the warmth of his skin on hers, and the rapid thrum of her own heartbeat. There's something between us, isn't there? He said, voice low to not break the magic of the moment. Yes, she whispered. I feel it too. He stepped in front of her, taking both her hands now. His jacket slipped from her shoulders, but she didn't feel the cold. All she felt was him. Rowan hesitated only a second, eyes locked with hers as if seeking permission. Iris answered by rising on her toes, closing the distance. Their lips met in a gentle, lingering kiss, the kind that sends a glow from your lips to your toes. Iris's eyes fluttered closed as she savored the softness of his mouth and the way he tenderly cupped her cheek. The kiss deepened for a breathless moment, full of sweet urgency and the pent-up longing of two souls that had been colliding toward each other without knowing it. When they finally parted, Iris realized she was trembling, not from the chill, but from the intensity of it all. She let out a small, nervous laugh of joy. Rowan's forehead rested against hers, his own breath unsteady. I've wanted to do that all day, he confessed with a grin. Me too, she admitted, laughing in disbelief at how fast her heart was racing. He wrapped his arms around her, drawing her into a hug. She nestled against his chest, hearing the strong beat of his heart in sync with hers. For a long while they stayed like that, holding each other as the sky turned a deeper, shade of dusk and the lighthouse beacon, began to glow faintly against the twilight. In that embrace, Iris felt a profound sense of rightness, as if everything that had happened was meant to lead her here. With Rowan's arms around her and the vast horizon before them, she felt safe and hopeful. The cautious optimism she'd felt before had blossomed into something real and vibrant. This is what it feels like, she thought, when life surprises you with exactly what you needed. They eventually pulled apart, sharing another soft kiss, before heading back to the car hand in hand. On the drive home, the two talked quietly about everything and nothing. Favorite songs, childhood pets, places they wanted to travel. It was as if the kiss had opened floodgates of closeness, every topic felt easier to share now that they both knew their feelings were mutual. By the time Iris dropped Rowan at the Harbour Lights Inn, he insisted he wasn't ready to leave Crescent Harbour yet. It was evening. They sat in her parked car for a moment, reluctant to part. "I'll walk you out," Rowan said, though it was just a few steps to the inn's door. He took her hand as they exited the car. Under the soft glow of the porch light, he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Thank you for an amazing day." Iris felt heat rise to her cheeks again. "No, thank you. I can't remember the last time I had such a wonderful day." He smiled. "Can I see you tomorrow? I know you work, but maybe after or before. Actually," he paused, looking a bit sheepish. "I have a confession. I extended my stay here through the end of the week. I was going to leave tomorrow, but now I'd like to stay if you'd like that too." Her heart soared. "I'd love that. I have work until 4 p.m. tomorrow, but after that I'm free." "Perfect. I'll pick you up after your shift. Maybe we can go out for dinner. A proper date," he added with a wink. "Proper date," Iris echoed happily. "It's a plan." With one last sweet kiss goodnight, they parted. Iris drove home practically floating. So this was what it felt like to have life take a sudden, beautiful turn. She had given a stranger a ride in the rain, a simple act of kindness, and in return, she'd found something precious. As she lay in bed that night, listening to a gentle patter of rain, starting anew, Iris hugged her pillow and smiled into the darkness. In the span of a few days, her world had shifted. She felt as though color and light and excitement were flowing back into a life that had been quietly subdued, and it all began with that heavy rain and a chance meeting on a lonely road. She couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. The next few days were like something out of Iris's dreams. She and Rowan were nearly inseparable whenever she wasn't at work. On Thursday evening, Rowan picked her up after her shift as promised, greeting her with a single yellow rose he'd bought from a street vendor. They dined at a cozy Italian bistro in a neighboring town, lingering over candlelight, and sharing bites of tiramisu as if they'd known each other for years. Friday, Rowan surprised her by popping into the diner during the slow mid-afternoon lull, ostensibly for a slice of pie and coffee. In truth, as Mira later teased Iris, he only had eyes for one sweet thing in that diner, and it wasn't the pie. He kept Iris company during her break, and even helped Mira carry a heavy box of supplies inside, charming her in the process. By that evening, Rowan had become a familiar face around Crescent Harbour. The regulars at the diner nodded. "Hello," and even Mrs. Perkins, of the famous pickle tips, whispered to Iris that she thought he was a fine young man. For Iris, it felt as though she were living someone else's life, one where she woke up excited for. The day where someone cared about how her morning was and couldn't wait to tell her about his. They talked endlessly during walks through the local farmer's market, while cooking dinner together at Iris's cottage. Rowan insisted on learning how to make her signature veggie pasta and curled up on the couch with Nimbus purring between them. Each night they grew closer. Though Rowan was staying at the inn, they often fell asleep cuddled in Iris's living room, watching an old movie, until Rowan would reluctantly head back, always after a tender goodnight kiss that left them both yearning for more. By Saturday, a week since that fateful storm, Iris couldn't imagine life without Rowan in it, which made the news he shared that afternoon all the harder to hear. They were strolling hand in hand by the marina, watching the boats bob on gentle waves, when Rowan's phone buzzed. Iris felt him tense as he read the message. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Rowan sighed and gave a half smile. "Work. I've been kind of ignoring it, but I can't much longer." He stuffed the phone back in his pocket. "There's an issue back in Seattle that needs my attention. My partner has been handling things, but they need me in a meeting first thing Monday." "Oh," Iris said softly, trying to mask her disappointment. Of course he would have to go back eventually. She'd just hoped eventually was farther away. "Will you be gone long?" "I hope not," Rowan replied, stopping to face her. "Maybe a couple of days. I'd drive down tomorrow, attend the meeting, and if all goes well I could be back by Tuesday." He brushed a strand of hair from her face gently. "I hate to leave, especially now." His earnest gaze nearly broke her heart. Iris forced a smile. "It's okay, really. I understand. You have responsibilities." They sat on a bench overlooking the water. Rowan kept hold of her hand, tracing circles on her palm with his thumb. "There's something I should probably tell you about why I left Seattle in the first place," he said quietly, eyes on the horizon. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to," Iris said, squeezing his hand. "I want you to know. I don't want there to be secrets." He took a breath. "Earlier this year, I was engaged. We'd been together 2 years. I thought she was the one." His voice wavered slightly. "Turns out she was more in love with the lifestyle and my bank account than with me. I found out she'd been seeing someone else on the side, someone wealthier, actually, an older investor." He grimaced at the memory. "We broke it off. I was angry at her, at myself. I dove into work even more to cope, but I guess I lost trust in people around me. That's partly why I needed to get away, clear my head. I was starting to wonder if I could truly ever find someone who saw me and not dollar signs." Iris felt a pang of sadness for what he had gone through, and also a flicker of relief. Hearing this explained some of his depth of appreciation for her kindness. She turned to him, bringing her free hand to his cheek. "I'm so sorry, Rowan. You didn't deserve that. For what it's worth, I'm glad you decided to take that trip, because it brought you to me." He smiled, leaning into her palm. "Me too." He exhaled as if a weight lifted by telling her. "Iris, I know it's only been a short time, but what I feel for you, it's real. Leaving you even for a couple days feels wrong, but I promise I'll come back." Her eyes stung with the beginning of tears at the sincerity in his voice. "I'll be here when you do." They spent the rest of that day and evening together, making every moment count. By nightfall, Rowan had arranged to borrow a car from the mechanic, his truck still awaiting parts to drive to Seattle the next morning. Sunday at dawn, Iris stood outside the inn, wrapped in Rowan's arms as they said goodbye. The world was quiet and grey with early mist. He kissed her slowly, as if memorizing her. "I'll call you when I get there," he promised, brushing his thumb over a tear that escaped her eye. "You better," she managed to joke, pulling herself together. "Drive safe, okay?" He pressed one last kiss to her forehead. "I will. See you soon, Iris." She watched his car pull away, a sense of emptiness already creeping in. It astonished her how quickly someone had become such an integral part of her life. For the rest of Sunday, Iris threw herself into chores and baking. Mira happily received a batch of experimental maple pecan muffins, anything to make the time pass. True to his word, Rowan called by noon to say he'd arrived safely in Seattle, and again, that night before bed, though he sounded tired and a bit distant as work weighed on him. Monday dragged. Iris worked a double shift to cover for a co-worker, which at least kept her busy. Between pouring coffee and taking orders, her mind kept wandering to Rowan. Was the meeting going well? Would he really be back by Tuesday, or would something else tie him up longer? She hated the slight insecurity that gnawed at her, born of a fear that his world might in the end pull him away for good. That evening, after a quick call where Rowan said the meeting had been moved to Tuesday morning, to her disappointment, Iris tried to stay positive. He said he would return right after. Still, a small voice of doubt whispered, "What if once he's back in his penthouse or wherever, he realizes how different his life is from yours? What if he decides this was just a pleasant detour but not worth upending his life for. She chastised herself for the unkind thoughts. Rowan wasn't like that, and he'd given her no reason to doubt him. Yet, given how magical the past week had been, Iris feared it might have been a beautiful bubble that reality could burst. Her anxiety wasn't helped by an unexpected visit that night. Around 8 p.m., as Iris was cleaning up after dinner, she heard a knock on her door. Wiping her hands, she opened it to find Mrs. Conway, the innkeeper from Harbour Lights. Standing on her porch, umbrella in hand, and a concerned expression on her face. "Evening, Iris dear," the older woman greeted. "Mrs. Conway, hello. Is everything all right?" Iris asked, puzzled. "Oh, yes. Nothing's wrong exactly. I just wanted to check on you. That young man, Rowan, he left this morning, and I noticed he hadn't returned yet." Mrs. Conway peered kindly at Iris. "He's such a nice fellow. I remember you introducing me briefly when you two came by the front desk the other day." Iris nodded. "He had to go to Seattle for work. He should be back tomorrow, I think. Did you need to reach him?" Mrs. Conway hesitated, then stepped a bit closer, lowering her voice as if sharing gossip. "Well, I wasn't going to pry, but earlier today, a fancy-looking woman came by the inn, asking for him. She had one of those sleek black cars and was dressed to the nines. I told her Mr. Locklear was out, and she seemed surprised he was staying at our little place. Mentioned she was an associate of his from the city." The innkeeper gave Iris a meaningful look. "I figured I'd mention it to you, dear. Sometimes city folk bring their drama with them, if you catch my meaning." Iris's stomach tightened. A fancy woman from the city looking for Rowan? An associate? Or perhaps the ex-fiancé? But how would she know where he was? Unless, had she been tracking him somehow? The thought was unsettling. "Thank you for letting me know," Iris managed. "Did she leave her name or say if she'd return?" "No, she just thanked me and left in a hurry. Just thought you should be in the loop. You take care now, Iris, and tell that young man to give us a heads up if he plans to entertain other guests," Mrs. Conway added with a wink that was meant to be jesting. Iris forced a smile as Mrs. Conway departed. Closing the door, she leaned against it, mind racing. Who could that woman have been? Should she mention it to Rowan? Perhaps it was nothing, maybe a colleague who coincidentally was passing through. That seemed unlikely. With unease gnawing at her, Iris tried calling Rowan. No answer. She left a short message asking him to call when he could, then spent a restless night worrying. By Tuesday morning, the unease had transformed into full-blown insecurity. When Rowan finally called around 11 a.m., sounding apologetic that the meeting had run over, Iris couldn't help but blurt, "Does the name of a woman visitor ring any bells for you?" Rowan was silent a moment. "A woman visitor? Iris, what do you mean?" She sighed, realizing she'd approached this poorly. "Mrs. Conway mentioned someone came by the inn looking for you yesterday. A well-dressed woman from the city. She said she was an associate of yours. A short, sharp intake of breath on the other end. That might have been my ex-fiancée, Alina," Rowan said slowly. "She'd be the type to drive down unannounced if she found out where I was. We haven't talked since the breakup, but she knew I took off on a trip. Iris, I'm sorry. I should have warned you that there was a possibility she might try to contact me." Iris's heart sank. The ex-fiancé. Suddenly, all her fears of not measuring up to his world surfaced. Alina, she even had a sophisticated name. And she'd come all this way. Did she reach you? Are you... Iris swallowed the lump in her throat. "Are you going to meet her?" "Of course not," Rowan answered immediately. "I have nothing to say to her. If anything, she probably wants to try to reconcile because she heard our business did well recently. But that ship has sailed." Iris wanted to believe him wholeheartedly. He'd given her no reason to distrust him, yet the vision of that glamorous woman seeking him out unsettled her deeply. She realized with a touch of shame that part of her insecurity was jealousy and a feeling of inadequacy. How could plain, small-town Iris compete with someone like that? She tried to keep her voice steady. "Okay, I trust you. It just threw me off." "I understand," Rowan said gently. Listen, I'll be heading out soon to drive back. I can't wait to see you, okay? We'll talk more then. Are you working today? I have a half shift, just the lunch rush and off by 2. Perfect. I should be back by late afternoon. Can I see you tonight? Yes, Iris said, her chest tight with emotion. I'll see you tonight. All afternoon at the diner, Iris's emotions warred. Mira noticed her tension and finally cornered her in the pantry. All right, what's wrong? You look like you're about to either cry or scream, she said, hands on her hips. Iris sighed and relayed the situation. Rowan's sudden trip, the surprise visitor, her own feelings of insecurity. It all came tumbling out in a whisper as she restocked sugar jars, if only to keep her hands busy. Mira listened, then pulled Iris into a quick hug. Girl, you have been on a roller coaster. But from everything you've told me, that man is crazy about you. Don't let some random ex shake you. But she's not random, Iris mumbled into a bag of sugar. She was his fiancée. What if seeing her, or just being back in his old life, made him realize he misses that world? I mean, I wait tables and bake muffins. She probably travels in private jets and wears designer clothes. Mira placed a finger under Iris's chin, lifting it firmly. Stop that. You are an amazing woman. If Rowan can't see that, then he's a fool. But I'm pretty sure he does see it. It sounds like she hurt him badly. He left that life behind for a reason. And he came here, to you, because you make him happy, right? Iris nodded, blinking back tears. I think so. He makes me happy too. I've never felt like this. Then trust that, Mira said, giving her a reassuring smile. If he loves you, which I suspect he does, he'll show you. Don't sabotage this with doubt before anything even happens. Iris knew her friend was right. She resolved to not jump to conclusions or let fear drive her actions. I'll talk to him openly, she decided. No hiding how I feel. That evening, Iris waited on her porch for Rowan, the sky above streaked with pink and lavender as the sun set. A cool breeze stirred the wind chimes that hung by her door, the tinkling notes doing little to calm her racing heart. Finally, headlights appeared down the lane. She recognized the mechanic's loaner car and stood as Rowan pulled in. He barely had time to shut the car door before Iris was across the yard and in his arms. Rowan hugged her tightly, lifting her feet off the ground slightly. I missed you, he murmured into her hair. I missed you too, she whispered, holding him as if he might vanish. The familiar scent of him, the warmth. She felt a rush of relief. They moved inside, where Rowan wasted no time capturing her lips in a slow, deep kiss that seemed to banish all the worries of the past 2 days. Breathless, Iris pulled back to cup his face. He looked tired, a bit drawn from driving and stress, but his eyes were full of affection. Come in, I made dinner, Iris said, leading him by the hand to the kitchen. She had simmered a hearty stew and baked cheddar biscuits, figuring comfort food might be welcome. As they sat and ate, Rowan recounted the work crisis. An important investor nearly pulled out of a deal, but Rowan and his partner managed to convince them otherwise and apologized again for the short-notice departure. Iris listened, but she could barely focus on work details. Now that he was here, she needed to address the one thing weighing on her heart. She waited until they had finished eating and moved to the sofa, Rowan gratefully, stretching his legs and putting an arm around her shoulders to draw her close. I'm glad the work stuff went okay, she began softly, one hand resting on his chest where she could feel his steady heartbeat. But I need to talk to you about something, about us. Rowan's arm tensed slightly as if bracing. All right, he said, turning to face her, concern flickering across his face. What is it? Iris took a breath. This past week has been incredible. I've never been so happy, but when you left, I realized how scared I am. Scared? Of what, love? He asked, brow furrowing. Scared that this is temporary, that I'll wake up and you'll be gone for good. You have this whole other life, Rowan, a big successful life in the city. I'm terrified that I can't fit into that, or worse, that you'll realize I don't, and... Her voice hitched. And you'll leave. Oh, Iris. Rowan's eyes filled with regret, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. She shook her head against his shoulder. It's not your fault, it's my own insecurities, I guess. And maybe seeing evidence of that other world, like your ex showing up, it just amplified them. Rowan gently tilted her chin up so she looked at him. Listen to me. My life before I met you might have been flashy on the surface, but it was empty in a lot of ways. I was lonely. The people I dealt with in business, many were sharks. The woman I was going to marry turned out to value the wrong things. I don't ever want to go back to feeling like that, like I can't trust the people closest to me. His thumb stroked her cheek. Then I met you, and you have been nothing but genuine, caring, and honest. You saw me at my lowest, soaking wet, stranded, no status or wealth on display, and you helped me without asking anything in return. You have no idea how rare that is in my world. Iris felt tears gathering. Anyone with a heart would have done what I did. No, many wouldn't have, Rowan said firmly. You did. And not only that, you gave me you. These past days I've felt more myself than I have in years. That's because of you, Iris. I know it's fast, but I love you. A soft gasp escaped her. It was the first time either of them had said it outright. The 3 words hung in the air, filled with earnest truth. I love you too, Iris confessed, her voice trembling with emotion. So much. A bright, relieved smile broke out on Rowan's face, and he kissed her, tender at first, then with growing passion as they both sank into the joy of finally saying what had been in their hearts. In that kiss, every doubt and fear seemed to melt away. When they finally surfaced for air, both a little teary and laughing at themselves, Rowan pressed his forehead to hers. We'll figure everything out, okay? The logistics, the future, it's all secondary. What matters is we want to be together, right? Right, Iris agreed, feeling a weight lift. Good, because I have some ideas, but I want to hear yours too. If you're open to changes. She pulled back slightly to look at him. Curiosity piqued. What kind of changes? Rowan took her hands in his. Well, for starters, I don't have to be based in Seattle full-time. My work allows a lot of flexibility. I can take meetings by video, travel when needed. Honestly, I'm not keen on returning to the old grind as it was. Being here has shown me there's more to life than 12-hour workdays. Iris's heart fluttered with cautious hope. Are you saying? I'm saying I could stay here in Crescent Harbor, at least part-time. Maybe get a small place here, or stay at the inn longer term. He grinned. Mrs. Conway would love the business. But your company, they'll adapt. My partner might think I'm crazy, but he owes me a few favors, Rowan said lightly. Alternatively, if you were interested in coming to Seattle, that's also an option, but I don't want you to feel pressured to leave your home. Actually, I had another thought. His eyes warmed with a touch of mischief. Remember that dream you told me about? Opening a bakery? Iris nodded, speechless. Well, Seattle certainly has plenty of bakeries. But do you know what this town doesn't have yet? A dedicated bakery cafe. The Pine Cone does a bit of that, but you could really carve out a niche. I did some asking around, hope you don't mind, and found out that old. Graham's hardware store, the one that shut down, is up for lease. It's right on Main Street, a prime spot. Iris's mouth fell open. Rowan, you've been researching storefronts for me. He squeezed her hands. Maybe a little. I can't help it. The entrepreneur in me sees an amazing opportunity. You, doing what you love, running a shop that this community would support wholeheartedly. I know you could make it a success, and I'd love to help you get it off the ground. Invest in it. With you. Tears spilled over Iris's cheeks. I don't know what to say. It's everything I've dreamed of, but it feels like so much, so fast. I know, he said gently, brushing away her tears with his thumb. And it's just one idea. We can take our time. I just want you to know that I'm invested in us in the long run. Whether it's living here, or you coming to the city, or splitting time, or starting a business together. Whatever it looks like, I want it to be with you. Iris threw her arms around him, hugging him fiercely. Her emotions swirled: love, astonishment, gratitude, but most of all, a sense of certainty that with Rowan by her side, they truly could face any future. Pulling back, she gave a watery laugh. "Okay, let's do it. Let's chase that dream together, yeah?" Rowan's face lit up. She nodded, smiling through happy tears. "You're right. We'll figure it out step by step. I can't think of a better partner in business or life." He kissed her again, sealing the promise. They spent the rest of the night talking excitedly about possibilities, how they might renovate, the old hardware store, recipes Iris wanted to showcase, how Rowan could manage. His work from a small town. He was already thinking of encouraging some of his city colleagues to consider occasional retreats to Crescent Harbor for a quieter work environment. They also discussed practical matters. Perhaps Iris could visit Seattle, with him occasionally when needed, maybe take a short course in pastry arts if she wanted. Rowan even mentioned knowing a renowned pastry chef he could introduce her to for mentorship. Iris felt almost dizzy. In the span of a day, her worries had transformed into plans for a bright future. It was overwhelming but thrilling. They eventually fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in each other's arms, nimbus. Curling up at their feet, this time Rowan didn't go back to the inn. When Iris woke in the early dawn light to find Rowan still there, his arms holding her close, and his steady breaths tickling her hair, she closed her eyes again and savored the moment. He came back, she thought with deep contentment. He's here. In that simple realization lay the answer to all her fears. Rowan had chosen her, just as she had chosen him. Though challenges would surely come, blending their lives, starting a business, whatever else the world had in store, she knew they would face them side by side. She had given a stranger a ride in the pouring rain, and in return he had given her new hope, love, and the courage to pursue her dreams. It was as if fate had rewarded her kindness with the greatest gifts life could offer. And so Iris held Rowan a little tighter and smiled, ready to greet the beautiful tomorrow that awaited them. True to their plans, over the next several months, Iris and Rowan set their shared dream into motion. With a lot of hard work and the support of the community, the old hardware store on Main Street transformed into Harbour and Hearth Bakery, the town's very first bakery cafe. On a crisp morning nearly a year after that fateful rainy night, Iris stood behind the counter of her bakery, the aroma of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee swirling in the air. The shop was warm and bustling, neighbors chatting at tables, a couple of tourists marveling at the delicious pastries, and at the center of it all was Iris, radiant and confident as she boxed up a dozen muffins for Mrs. Perkins. A familiar voice called out, "Excuse me, miss. These are the best scones I've ever had. Can I speak to the chef to give my compliments?" Iris turned to see Rowan grinning at her from a corner table where he was sitting with Mira and a few of their friends. She laughed, walking over with a pretend look of formality. "Sir, the chef is very busy, but I'll be sure to pass along the message." Rowan took her hand, eyes twinkling. A year together had only deepened their love. He spent part of each month in Seattle for work, but more often than not, he was here in Crescent Harbor. Indeed, he had purchased a charming house just down the road from Iris's cottage, though he mostly stayed with her and Nimbus when in town. They were inseparable and happier than ever. In fact, that very morning before the bakery opened, Rowan had gotten down on one knee in Iris's kitchen and presented her with a ring, made of rose gold crowned with a sapphire. The deep blue reminded him of the rain and her eyes on the night they met, he said. Iris had cried and said yes before he could even finish asking her to marry him. Now they shared their secret engagement glances across the room, both glowing with joy. Mira raised a coffee cup in salute. To the chef and her charming fiancé, she toasted slyly, having already extracted the news from Iris with a squeal earlier. A few nearby customers overheard and clapped, adding their congratulations. Blushing and laughing, Iris felt her heart overflow. She slid into the seat next to Rowan, and he draped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. They looked out through the bakery's front window. Outside, A gentle rain had begun to fall, pattering on the sidewalk, a reminder of another rainy day that seemed both just yesterday and a lifetime ago. Funny, isn't it? Rowan murmured to Iris, tilting his head toward the drizzle outside. If it weren't for the rain, I might never have met you. Iris nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. If I hadn't driven that way home, if I hadn't stopped. She shuddered at the thought of the life she'd be living without him. Perhaps she'd still be serving eggs at the diner, convincing herself dreams could wait, unaware of the profound love and happiness she was missing. Rowan kissed her forehead. You changed my life, picking me up that night. And you changed mine, in more ways than I can count, she replied softly. Mira, eavesdropping as always, leaned over with a cheeky grin. All right, you two lovebirds, stop making the rest of us jealous and tell me which of these goodies I should taste test next. My vote is the lemon berry tart. Iris chuckled and got up, duty calling. Coming right up. 1 tart for the unofficial quality control manager. As she fetched the tart, Rowan joined her behind the counter, slipping on one of the spare aprons. The sight of the tall, once high-flying venture capitalist cheerfully tying on a flour-dusted apron to help his soon-to-be wife serve customers made Iris's heart swell with pride and affection. He caught her looking and wiggled his eyebrows comically, making her giggle. Handing the tart to Mira, Iris noticed Mrs. Conway from the inn entering, shaking raindrops off her umbrella. Iris excused herself to greet her. The elderly innkeeper had become a regular for morning tea and a chat. Your place is just lovely, dear, Mrs. Conway praised, eyes sparkling. I knew you two would make a great team. Thank you, Iris beamed. She poured the hot tea, and as she handed it over, Mrs. Conway patted her hand warmly. I remember that night I checked Rowan in, after you brought him. I had a feeling something special was starting. And look at you now. Iris glanced over at Rowan, who was playfully attempting to do some latte art on a cappuccino. For a customer, much to their amusement since it resembled more of a blob than a heart, her chest filled with gratitude. I'm very lucky, she said. Stepping back, Iris took a moment amid the bustle to simply breathe and absorb the scene. It was everything she had ever wanted. Love, community, purpose, all come to life. And it all began with one simple act of kindness on a dark, stormy night. Outside, the rain continued gently, but to Iris, the day couldn't have felt sunnier. She wiped a tear of happiness from her eye, remembering her mother's words about kindness leading you to your path. How right her mother had been. Rowan came up beside her, sliding an arm around her waist. Hey, you all right? She smiled up at him, eyes shining, never better. He followed her gaze around the cozy bakery and the content patrons. Leaning down, he whispered, Proud of you, Iris. She rested her head against him. Couldn't have done it without you. In the days to come, Iris would often reflect on the journey that brought her here. The moral at the heart of it was clear and simple, yet profound. No act of kindness is ever wasted, and sometimes the smallest gesture can change your life in ways you'd never imagine. She gave a stranger a ride in the heavy rain, expecting nothing in return but hoping he'd be safe. In return, that stranger gave her love, support, and a future brighter than any she had dreamed. Life has a beautiful way of rewarding a good heart. Iris's life was forever changed for the better because, on that one rainy night, she chose compassion over fear. And every morning she woke up to the love of her life and the fulfillment of her dreams. She was grateful for that choice. Thank you for spending this evening with me. If this story warmed your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone if you believe a small act of kindness can change a life. Comment your favorite lesson from Iris and Rowan. I look forward to reading every single one. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see you in the next story. Remember that sometimes the smallest act of kindness opens the door to the greatest chapters of our lives.